Hello everyone, you're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host, and in this video I want to discuss the concept of the Golden Horde. I'm not referring to the Mongol invasion force, I'm talking about the concept in prepping and survivalism, that when there's a major economic or agricultural collapse or some other disaster, that the major metropolitan and population density centers are going to empty out as people evacuate and flee from places where it's just not tenable to live if you don't have a constant influx of food and water and outflux of waste and things like that. And this pretty much stands to reason, but there is an argument against it, stating that a lot of people and their bias towards just wanting to stay and hope that things get better um, is going to keep them in place from, evacuating the cities. And this has a pretty good argument. But I do see some people hinging their preparations or their expectations on what they perceive to be likely for the masses. Now, I think that sometimes as preppers in this community, we are guilty of looking at things with future hindsight. And by that I mean, because we have the benefit of reading history books and looking at things from the perspective of historians, sometimes in this community, when we're trying to forecast what we might expect from the future, we sometimes are guilty of looking at the broad strokes of things and not necessarily appreciating what things will be like on an individual basis. So, yes, while it might be true that what we might end up seeing in the broad strokes will be that there wasn't ever an actual Golden Horde incident that you can look back and point at and say, this is the period of time during which everybody grabbed what they thought might be valuable for trade and left the cities hoping that they could find somewhere where the prospects were better. But I do believe that regardless of whether or not there's any single period of time where this is the case, I don't necessarily think that it is wise to assume that it just won't happen around you, because there could be all kinds of situations which lead to local populations being displaced, whether that's a major fire, which is very likely to happen no matter what other kind of major collapse or disaster incident is going on, or just any number of the different factors that could cause large populations to have to move, whether that's a lack of food, violence, or just many other factors. So, while it may be true that during an initial grid down situation like an EMP, that many of the people who live in cities will stay put because they won't know that there's a reason for them to leave, they'll just be hoping the lights come on soon. There will also be multiple situations where there will be influxes towards the cities. For instance, in a few different economic situations, we can look at the first Great Depression and see that, at least under those circumstances, everybody flocked towards the cities because that's where the jobs were at. Now, that may well not be the case the next time around, but there are certain situations where it may be that there is an influx towards the cities. But in a lot of disaster situations where the food supply to those cities is cut off, it is reasonable to expect that there will be an exodus, at least at some point. Now, if they wait too long, they will be hungry, and it will be an ugly situation for many of them, and they may not get that far. But I think that it is wise to consider that while many may starve while trying to get out of the cities, many will not, and even if it's just over the course of years, if it is a situation that lasts that long, we will probably see a great diffusion of the population centers into the surrounding rural areas. And while, again, we may not see any period of time where historians will look back and say, there, that is the period of time where the Golden Horde left the cities and interacted with everybody on their farms, I don't necessarily think that that means that we as preppers can discount the possibility that we will have to deal with such things, because it really only takes one incident on one single day to ruin your life. You only need that one wrong group of people to come down your driveway. You don't need the whole golden horde to, like I said, ruin your day. So I'm really curious what your guys' thoughts are on population migration in your area. For myself, I live in one of the largest, most densely populated counties in my area, which isn't saying much. My county has less than 200,000 people in it. The sister county next to me has around 500,000 people in it. Now, that is the dense center, and while there are a couple reasons that other people might want to come here, like because it's the medical hub, I am at the point which will probably diffuse out into the rural areas. And so there are a lot of factors that play into that. Now, it is interesting to note that while I am in the dense population center of my area, there's more agriculture here than there are in the suburbs of many places. So I'm not too worried about the people around me in most any situation compared to the people around me in many other places that I might visit. I don't have to worry about any major metropolitan areas emptying into my area because they are many hours of driving away from here. But there are many factors that would come into play in a few different situations. But for the most part, I don't need to worry about mass migrations of people who aren't already local to my area. If anything, I will be one of the people who will be relocating to somewhere more outside of town, if not a little further away. Anyways, I'm curious what your outlooks are and what you would expect to see in a few of these different situations. Anyways, conversation down below. Hope you're all doing well. Everybody, stay safe out there.